All right, we are good to go. Climates of the world, take two. Take one was when we took notes ourselves. We had a quiz, and the quiz was not fantastic. Some of you guys did well, some of you guys did the opposite of well, but most of us had some holes, so I want to go through this quickly. I'm going to talk quick. If you don't catch something the first time through, feel free to pause it, run it back, and away we go. Here are our climate zones. This threw us off a little bit. It was in there, but if you look, here it is, tropical in the middle, temperate as you expand out into the green section, and then you have the polar toward the ends. The other piece to notice, and it's really just the wording, but we want to know what people are talking about if we're reading it, 0 degrees of the equator, so that's your low latitude. As you come out, here's your middle latitudes, and your high latitudes toward the polar, colder areas. Let's keep going into our climate zones. This one will just buzz through. Lines of latitude worth knowing. You've got your Arctic Circle up top, Tropic of Cancer, the equator, Tropic of Capricorn, and the Antarctic Circle. Here's where they are as far as their degree measurements go. Really all we have is that below the Antarctic Circle it's polar, between the Antarctic Circle and the Tropic of Capricorn it's temperate, between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn it's tropical, and you can figure out the rest based on that. It is a mirror image, easy enough. Climate zones. So if we look at this, we have our annual average temperatures. You can see that it's very hot in the middle, very cold on the edges. Up over 80 degrees the closer we are to the equator. Very, very cold when we get down into Antarctica. Real basic, hot in the middle, cold on the outside. If we relate this to our climate zones, you can see it. There it is. Here's your tropical. Your temperate is this yellow and green area with some orange, right, and the blues on the polar. Then we get to altitude. So we've got temperature. That's a big piece. Then we get to our altitude, and altitude is going to have its effects on temperature. Here we see 4 specific areas. We've got the Himalayas, so here's where Mount Everest is. High area, as you can see, up over 5,000 meters. Meters are about 3 feet for us, a little bit more, so call that 15,000 feet. You have the Andes Mountains. These are where our llamas were hanging out in the Americas, in Chile, in Peru today. Round 3, up here we've got the Rocky Mountains. Here you can see Colorado. They get a lot of the love for the Rockies, but you can see it extends quite a bit. And our 4th place is Greenland. So we've got 4 places that have elevation. Why do we care? Well, let's look at this. Right. Here's the world. Let's throw in our lines. There's our polar regions. There's our temperate. So from top to bottom, polar. And we've got temperate. Then we've got our tropical in the middle. Temperate in here, and polar down below. If we look at the key below, right, really tropical is our tropical, all the way over to the side is our polar, and everything in between is pretty much temperate. So we should expect to see green and gray in this tropical range. Do we? Absolutely. We should expect to see blue, whites, right, in the pole area. Down here it's all white, up here it's blue and white, everything checks out. And then we've got these 3, this assorted area when we get into our temperate. There's some orange, here's some orange and yellow, some brown. So the temperate areas we see more of a range, which makes sense. They're also the ones that have the seasons. So here in Rhode Island, it's fall right now. That's fun unless you're raking. We have a change in a temperate zone. Now, there are a couple things that are a little bit off here. Right? If we look into this temperate zone, we do have some white. We've got some white down here in the tropical area, white down here in the tropical area, white up here in the temperate. So let's just point those out. And while we're doing that, say, what's the deal? Well, it goes back to what we just saw. Right? If there is altitude, and here are those Himalayas, here are those Andes Mountains, here are those Rockies, right? And there are some mountains, if you go back and look at it, in Ethiopia. The higher up you are from the sea, the colder it's going to be. So when we have elevation, when we have increase in altitude, we have a change in temperature. It gets colder. Right? There's another basic fact we need to be on top of. Then we get to the ocean currents. Just by looking at this, you can see a lot going on. These are kind of like rivers that are in the ocean. This is the way that the water moves. You can see that at the equator, it's moving pretty much right parallel to the equator. Warm water at these red arrows. Anywhere these red arrows hit land or need to get turned by land, you're going to have a lot of rain. Warm water leads to evaporation. The evaporation goes into the clouds. The clouds need to get rid of their moisture. It comes down as rain. So you can come back and forth with this, but you'll see anytime we see a red line hitting land, we can expect to see a lot of rain. So right here, let's expect some rain. Right, in this area, near where Bangladesh is, we'll see a lot of rain. Even this area, right, southern America, southern U.S., lots of rain going on here. So let's look at that next one. Right, lots of rain in this tropical region. Here's the Amazon. A lot of rain where it hits the coast, and then you run into the mountains, so you get a lot of rain. Same thing here, right, in Bangladesh. A lot of rain from the current that's right here, and then you run into the mountains. Right, so tropical area is going to get a lot of rain because the water is so warm. The ocean's currents are going to affect precipitation, and precipitation is a big part. It's half the battle of climate. Temperature and precipitation make up our climate. So let's run through these questions quick. For this quiz, climates of the world. Just by looking at this, what is the climate of the polar zone? Got it, it's cold. What climate zone is warm year-round? We can see that it's in the tropical. We need to have that. And finally, which climate zone has seasons? Well, if we look at the temperate zone, we can see it going from cold right now in February, March, and then in the summer it's getting warmer. That indicates seasons, so the temperate zone is going to have our seasons. Let's keep going. Right, our climate zones, we saw this, right? Really, really easy if we look at it now. No need to run through it, but here's a question that gave a lot of people some trouble. Right, feel free to check that out with some more time. Climate zones we saw. What is the climate of the polar zone? It's cold. There it is. Right. What climate zone is warm year-round? Tropical, same thing. We just saw this. Altitude affects our temperature. Generally, the higher the altitude a place is, well, here's a high altitude. Let's look at the temperature. It's white, which means it's cold. The higher up you go, the colder it will be. In ocean currents, which of the following affect climate? Right. So this is where we had to throw everything together. Did latitude affect climate? Absolutely. If you're in a tropical area, we know it's going to be wetter. We know it's going to be hotter. Do currents? Well, that's what we're looking at right here. Currents are going to bring rain, and rain is precipitation. Precipitation is a part of climate. Does altitude? Yes, we just saw it. We just looked at the Himalayas. So the answer here is going to have to be D, all of these. Which of the following affects climate? Same thing, right? Just the conversation with this map behind it instead, which means we just missed two. Right? There are two things that we didn't cover in these pictures. Climate is, there's going to be all of these. Influenced by currents, yep, we just discussed that. Is temperature and precipitation, that was in the notes that we took earlier on. And weather over a long period of time, that was one of our definitions when we introduced geography. So this asks you to go back a little bit. And finally, climate affects which of the following? This is one you just had to think about. If it's going to affect one of these, humans, plants, or animals, it's got to affect all of them. If we're talking temperature, we're talking about precipitation, it's going to affect everybody here. Right. There's our quiz. Hope that was helpful. Until next round, be well.